There are two retaining rings used to secure the wrist pin to the piston. The wrist pin attaches the connecting rod to the piston. It is free to move slightly side to side and rotate within its mounting. The retaining rings attach to either side of the piston and trap the pin so it can't contact the cylinder. The retaining rings don't need to be serviced individually, however, they are a part that needs to be replaced whenever they are removed. The retainer is a sprung ring. When it is removed, it becomes slightly compressed. If reinstalled, it will not fit tightly and could come loose. If the retaining ring comes loose, it will quickly cause severe engine damage when the piston strikes it. Replacing the retaining ring is a repair that you can do yourself, and I'm going to show you how.
Hi, I'm Mark Socha.
Do-it-yourself repairs like these are easier than you might think. From lawn machines to cordless drills, kitchen mixers,
Outdoor grills.
our how-to videos walk you through each repair from start to finish. So doing it yourself means never having to do it alone.
Let's get started.
I'll begin by removing the top cover from the engine. I'll go ahead and remove the spark plug as well. Now I'll remove the air filter cover, the air filter, and I'll remove the air filter base and carburetor. Behind the carburetor, I'll disconnect the ignition wires. And now I'll remove the fuel tank. Next, I'll remove the plastic housing beneath the muffler. And now I can separate the clutch housing and shaft from the engine. With the engine separated, now I'll remove the ignition coil, the carburetor insulator, and the muffler. Now I can separate the cylinder from the crankcase. Now I can remove the retaining ring from the piston. I'll use a pair of needle nose pliers to grab it, compress it, and pull it away from the piston. Now I can install the new retaining ring. First, I'll insert the long end into the groove inside the piston. Then I'll carefully compress the retaining ring, being careful to not over-compress it or lose it as I insert it into the piston. And I'll verify that it's seated inside the groove so it doesn't come loose. Now I can reinstall the cylinder. As I reinstall the cylinder, it's a good idea to go ahead and replace the gasket. The gasket you remove will likely be damaged. I'll place the gasket on top of the crankcase housing. You'll notice there's a notch on one side of the housing, and I'll align the notch in the gasket in that location. Make sure you get it flipped the right direction so it lines up with the screw holes. Now I'll apply some oil to the piston and to the inside of the cylinder. There's an arrow on the top of the piston. That arrow needs to align with the exhaust port on the cylinder. The piston ring end gap needs to align with the metal post inserted in the side of the piston. Now I'll compress the piston ring as I slide the cylinder over the piston. Once in place, I'll re-secure it with the screws. Now reinstall the muffler and the carburetor isolator. You'll want to inspect the gaskets and replace them as needed. Now reinstall the ignition coil. I'll rotate the flywheel so the flywheel magnets are pointing up towards the top of the cylinder. I need to set a gap between the ignition coil and the magnets. The proper gap in this case is 14 thousandths of an inch. I have a gapping tool, which is nothing more than a piece of plastic that's that dimension. I'll place the gapping tool between the ignition coil and the magnets and install the screws. Before I tighten the screws, I'll make sure the ignition coil is pushed firmly against the gapping tool and that it's over the top of the magnets. Then I can tighten the screws. Now I can reinstall the engine to the clutch and shaft assembly. Now reinstall the fuel tank. Next, I'll reinstall the carburetor and the air filter base. And again, I'll be careful to not over-tighten these screws so I don't crack the insulator. I'll reconnect the ignition wires. Fold them over and secure them underneath with the wire holder. Now I'll reinstall the plastic housing that goes beneath the muffler. I'll reinstall the air filter and the air filter cover. I'll reinstall the motor cover and I'll finish up by reinstalling the spark plug. And that's how you can install a new retaining ring in your small engine. Be sure to check back often for new videos and expert advice. If you found this video helpful, give us a thumbs up
And leave a comment.